Welcome back. Today I'd like to solve some puzzles or attempt to solve some puzzles on chess.com with the ultimate goal of getting better at chess. As you can see from my current rapid rating down there in the corner, I'm not getting better at chess, at least relative to those around my rating level. I've been dropping over the past few weeks, and I'd like to change that. One way that I think I can change that is through puzzles. A couple of other goals for this video include not getting distracted by the interface and the themes and those other things that normally distract me. Number 2, try to remember to use my checklist. I almost forgot it entirely in my previous puzzle solving video, but I need to look for material imbalances. I need to look to see how much danger I'm in, because sometimes those are clues to what the puzzle solution is. And I need to look for checks, captures, and threats on every puzzle, unless it's like a mate that's really obvious. Anyway, let's just go. I'm going to click solve puzzles and we'll see what we get. I am playing with the white pieces. In our last session, we made it to 1551. I don't know how far we'll get here. Okay, I do have a rook, but that rook is defended. But let's look for how much danger I'm in. I'm in a little bit of danger because their queen and rook are lined up on these pawns in front of my king, and I am down on material. My opponent has one rook more than I do and one minor piece more than I do, as well as one extra pawn, which is a passed pawn. Over here, nothing in front of it. Okay, so I'm in a little bit of danger. Sometimes that's a clue that we're going to have a checkmate. Another thing on my checklist to look for is tactical motifs, and sometimes those are pins or skewers or forks, but I'm pretty sure that here what I'm looking for is a checkmate. Wait, and just as I was about to say let's look for checks, I saw this one is the first check that I saw. Is that checkmate? The rook is cutting off all of the squares behind the king. My queen from here would be defended by the bishop, and my queen would be hitting all of those squares, and none of my opponent's pieces are pointed in the right direction to capture my queen. So I think this is a mate in one, and it took me a long time because I started off looking for the whole checklist instead of just looking for checks first. But before I move it and get embarrassed, I'm going to make sure my queen isn't pinned. Okay, I think it's mate in one. Oh my, yeah, it took me way too long to get that, and it was rated really low, 1182. Anyway, I said I wasn't going to get distracted by that. Let's keep going. I've already spent nearly 5 minutes making this video. I am again playing with the white pieces. Okay, material count. We both have 2 bishops. We each have a knight and we each have a rook, so I think our piece count is fairly similar. How much danger am I in? I'm in a little bit of danger. Wait, no, that's a lot of danger, isn't it? Because their bishop's cutting off this square and their knight's guarding that one. That would be checkmate if it was my opponent's. No, it wouldn't be checkmate if it was my opponent's turn because my bishop is guarding h2. Okay, so, but still, it looks like a lot of danger. I can't move my king. My knight is under attack. So it's probably a checkmate or very serious, piece something, getting a lot of pieces. So let's look at checks. I do have a check with the knight. It doesn't seem incredibly effective. The king would just move forward. It could move back as well if I checked with the knight down on c7. If it moved back, then I could move the knight anywhere and it's a check, and maybe I could pick up another piece or something. But if I did check there and the king moved forward, then I could not have this check because my knight would be in the way. I have this check now, but then I lose my knight. But then I could check again with the bishop and the king could go back. And I could bring my rook back over here, and that would be checkmate. Okay. Wait, is that checkmate? Do they have any other moves? They can't take my rook because the knight's protecting it. So I think they would have to take the knight. Then when I check with this bishop, they have more than one option. My rook is still cutting off the A file, so they would not be able to go over there, but they would be able to come forward or go back to c6. And I think if they went back to c6, it's mate. But what if they come forward to b4? Then I have this check with this bishop, and I think that's checkmate. Okay, so I think I have to give up the knight. I did. Oh, I hope this is right. I don't see. I mean, I could also check with the pawn. But if I check with the pawn, they go back in there, and that's mate. Wait, maybe it's the pawn, not the bishop. Do they have some recourse if I check with the bishop? What happens if I check with the pawn? And they come forward, check here. They can come down. If I don't move the A pawn, they cannot come down. Then I think it's with the bishop, and then they came forward. So I think this is mate. Just make sure the rook's cutting off the A file. The pawns are cutting off all 3 of these squares. My bishop's hitting here. I think that's checkmate. Mate in 3. Okay. Oh, what? 29-38. I don't think I've ever had a puzzle rated that high. Okay, something's changed, but again, I'm not going to be distracted by that. Let's go. Okay, this time I am playing with the black pieces. I have some pawns that would like to promote, but cannot. My opponent has a passed pawn, but my bishop's in the way of it. Also, I have a feeling there could be a stalemate trap here if I don't play the right move. For example, if I take this pawn, hoping to get it out of the way of my promotion, and then the bishop sacrifices itself here and I take the bishop, I think that's a stalemate. No, it's not, because they can move this pawn. But then if I came back with my bishop and took that pawn, and my king is here, oh, they would have a legal move. Okay, so maybe it's not a stalemate. Back to the checklist. How much danger am I in? I don't think I'm in any more danger than normal here, other than this passed pawn being so close. But I have two passed pawns that are that close. There's just stuff in the way. So not a lot of danger. Tactical motifs do not appear to be anything other than passed pawns. Let's look at checks. I do not have a check with the bishop currently. I do have the check with the pawn, which we've already discussed because I went out of order. I don't have any captures other than this pawn. If I take this pawn, they cannot take back because my bishop is defending it. Maybe that's the stalemate trap. I did try one time to create an endgame puzzles checklist because it's different than regular puzzles, but I never really came up with a successful one. And the only point on that checklist that's ever been really helpful to me is process of elimination. When you have this few pieces, there's only so many moves you can make. This pawn can't move at all. My king has 4 legal moves. I don't think any of those make sense. And we already talked about moving this pawn. I think they go to the H file to get in front of it, and then there's nothing that I can do. And I think we said they could get a stalemate if I take the G pawn. So I think all 3 of those are out, so that must mean it's a bishop move. Maybe. This isn't a check, and it gets out of the way of that pawn, but I don't think they would move it just then. But what does that accomplish? I don't think that accomplishes anything. And obviously moving back here, I don't think either one of those are any good. Any of these points along this diagonal, not there, doesn't make a lot of sense. So I'm back to taking this pawn. If I take this pawn, it's my bishop's defended. They can't take back. But do they have a stalemate threat then? Wait, is that the one I discussed at the beginning of this puzzle? If they take there and I take there, then they can still move this pawn. But then I can take it. Wait, maybe that's it. What do they play if I take this pawn? I don't think they'll do the bishop sacrifice because, as we determined, it's not a stalemate. But let's just say that they do. They take here and I take back with my king. They have to move this pawn. Then I come back and take it with my bishop. And then I have a pawn here with my king. And they can't get in front of the pawn because of my bishop. And they can't go to any of these squares because of my king. So they would have to go over there. And then I can advance the pawn. Okay, so they won't sacrifice. So what do they play then? Back to this. What do they play if I take this pawn? They can't move their king at that point, at anywhere. And if they move the pawn first and I come back and take it, then I don't know what they do. Maybe it's taking the pawn. I've spent too much time on this. Oh, it was that, and they did move the pawn. Okay, now if I take the pawn, what does my opponent play? Because that's what I was intending on doing, and I'm kind of surprised that they moved it, but I guess they didn't have a lot of other options. I'm going to take it. They did give up the bishop, but now it's not a stalemate because, like I said, they have to go that way. Oh my. Well, that one was probably more exhausting than it should have been. Okay, next puzzle. I'm going to start with my checklist this time. Are there any tactical motifs? Sorry, piece imbalance first, or material imbalance. My opponent has 2 rooks, and I'm down in exchange, and they're up a pawn, a passed pawn right here in the middle. So my opponent is ahead on material. And it looks like they're ahead positionally because, again, the passed pawn and then these 2 rooks here. Looks like they're going to come around this way. I'm going to have to scoot in here. I don't know what they're going to do after that. Maybe they should have brought the king first or this pawn so that I wouldn't be able to get out, right? But instead of moving this, what if they had pushed that pawn? I don't know. So my opponent is ahead. I'm in a little bit of danger, but I don't see them having a checkmate immediately. Checks. I do have this check, which they can't come this way because of my knight and their pawn. And all that's cut off, and they can't go here because of my pawn, so they would only have 1 legal move. And then I could check with the knight one of 2 different places. I don't know which one would be best. Hitting that square, and then they would have 2 choices. And I could check again with the rook, but if my knight didn't go to e3, then they could go this way. So maybe that follow-up should be on e3. So what if I check, they go to g4, I check with the knight to e3, so they can't go there because then I would have mate with the rook. So they'll go to this one, h5, and then I have mate with the pawn? Well, at each one of those stages, I might have missed something, so I'm going to check them again. That's the first and only check that I see, so again, rook cuts off the entire f file, the knight and their pawn cut off the e file, their own pawn and my pawn are blocking their progress to the g file, so that leaves them the 1 legal move. Because they can't block, they have to move the king. And then I check with the knight. As I said, I have 2 different options for the check. But I think e3 is the better one because it protects down here on G2 in case they escape the check this way. And then I have mate. So if I check with the knight on E3 and they come to H5, my knight is cutting off G4 where they just were. So this would be checkmate. Let's do it. They went there. I think it has to be this one. Oh, I hope that's right. Oh, they went the other way. Well, then I think this is mate because my knight and their pawn are blocking all their ways out. That one seemed not that hard for a 22 rated puzzle because it's the only check you have. And then there were only two choices with the knight. And either way, I had a mate afterwards. Well, not down here, obviously, because, yeah. Okay, so only one of them led to a mate. Okay, well, I'm glad I got it right. And I have enough time for at least one more. Maybe I can break 1600 in this video. Let's keep going. Material imbalance comes down to those two pawns. Everything else looks equal. How much danger am I in? It looks like a little bit. They're about to promote. I also have a pawn in danger here. And I don't see anything that I would call a tactical motif, but as before, I'm not entirely sure what tactical motif means, other than those things you look for in puzzles like forks and pins and whatnot. I'm going to go for checks, captures, and threats. My only captures are this pawn, this pawn. I don't know what the pawn capture over here does. I don't think that helps anything, and this definitely loses the game for me very quickly. Threats, also something I'm not very good at looking at. But checks, I have this check. I have 3, 4, 5, 4 checks with the queen, 1 check with the pawn. I think those are all my checks. Okay, well, let's go ahead and get rid of the queen checks because the king captures my queen, and then whatever I play next, they promote. So what about the pawn check? Okay, well, I'm out of time. I've got other things to do. I really wanted to be sure, but I don't see anything that delays me losing other than pushing this pawn. They'll move to one of these two squares because those are the only legal moves, and then I don't know what I'm going to do after that. Okay, that was right. The only thing I can think of here was to check, but they just get out. So I'm still having the same problem I had before I checked with the pawn, which is that I don't know what to do after that. Yeah, see, if my H pawn was here, then they couldn't get out. Then I would have mate by putting my queen in the corner. That's the preparatory move. Okay, wait. Okay, so the check was not the preparatory move. That was just a check to keep from losing. But now I have time to make a preparatory move because if they promote, which they might, what if I play H4 now? What do they do? Because if they promote, then I think that's mate because my queen will be cutting off this and my pawn's guarding their getaway square. It's amazing how often that happens that I can't see the ending of the puzzle until after I make one of the moves. It doesn't always happen. Sometimes I make the first move and then get the second one wrong. But I don't know if that's it or not, but I couldn't see that until after I moved this and they came here and I was wishing that my pawn was there and I realized I can move it there. I don't know what else to do. I don't have enough time to go through all the options again. Hopefully that's it. Oh, they have moved their queen down here so that I cannot checkmate them, but I can take the queen. Oh, I just realized they could have pushed this pawn. That would have given them an out. Okay, so I should take the queen, right? Oh my. If I capture the queen and they promote, well then I still have this mate. But what if I capture the queen and they play the g-pawn? I can still check, but they can just sidestep the check. I can check and then they can get out. Then I can check here. They can get out. And as long as I'm checking them, they can't promote that pawn, but I guess after that I could go over here and get behind the pawn. Okay, I'm going to take the queen. Oh, it stopped. Oh my. And when I did break 1600, okay. I am over my normal time limit here, but I want to see what happens after. Okay, so they do that. Okay, it's a forced mate in 5. I was wrong then. I guessed this right. I mean, I deduced that, I guess. I didn't know what to do afterward. They could go to H6 or H7. They went to H6. H4 is the only move. If I don't do it, the opponent has a mating sequence. Okay, so I figured that out after I made the first move, obviously. It was their best move to play queen to C8, so they did. And my only move, of course, to take back. I didn't see anything else that made sense, so I took back. My question is, what happens if they play G5? It says I still have a mate. Well, let's say they play G5, because now this isn't mate anymore. Oh, it says I can play queen to C1. Oh, because then I could go there. Oh, wow. I don't think I ever would have seen that. Now, I know why the puzzle didn't continue is because, let's see, if they play king to H7, which is one of their moves, yeah, I have 2 moves that are very similar to each other. Queen to F8, which threatens mate here, or queen to E8, which lets them promote, and then I take this pawn And it says they would go down and I would have mate, but what if they went up after I took the F pawn? Oh, then I would still have mate on G7. Either way, okay. But what if they didn't move the king? What if they did what I said, which is this? It says I could check on G8. No, that's not G8. It says, okay, go to G8, which is not a check. And then it doesn't matter what they do, I have mate here. Oh, I know puzzles don't continue when you have two different routes to a fairly quick mate, but I kind of wish that they would, because I don't know that I would have figured that out. Okay, I'm glad I got it. Thank you for sticking with me if you made it this far. I think I did better at not looking at the themes. I don't know if I looked at any of the themes. I did look at the ratings of a few of these puzzles. Like one of them was nearly 3,000. This one's 2,306. I feel like I'm doing pretty good. I feel like I'm doing pretty well, which is more correct, I think. Anyway, I'll see you next time.